Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. Oh, my ears are ringing. I'm going to file a noise complaint. One of those Part 150-something studies. So first things first, before we start off with the last session, which is always the best, it's truth, been verified by myself and certified by myself that the student session is always the best session. We have a giveaway to do. This is from our friends over at Yardi. They are raffling off a Fitbit Ultra. So it's one of those new technology things. It can't talk to a street light, but it can tell you what your resting heart rate is. And then you can Instagram it on how healthy that you are. So we're going to go ahead and pick the winner here.
What if it's you?
It should be me. I want it. If I don't get it, I'm not going to be happy. And then you're going to have to give me some toffee to hurt my broken feelings. Mr. He always wins these things. Scott Malta from Castle Airport. No, you told me I was going to win. You told me. I wanted to win. I didn't win. I was supposed to win. Amanda was going to give me the prize. My goodness, this isn't fair. Congratulations, Mr. Scott. Remember, I was your favorite student when you were president, because I remember that you were the president. Do you want to give me the, no? Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, so again, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sean Moran. I am, have the distinct pleasure and honor to be the moderator for session number 9, which is the SWAHI undergraduate sessions, and formerly known as our SWAHI Winter Management Short Course Student Speaker Sessions. I'm sure as you've all seen, we've got a great turnout of students here from California State University, Los Angeles, San Jose State, and Arizona State University. And I want to give them a round of applause again for taking the time from their busy school schedules. Some of them are actually juggling this week, going back and forth to San Jose State because it's the first week of their spring semester, so that they're able to secure a spot in the classes that they want. So we can just give a round of applause for our students for attending once again. I think I can speak for SWAHI that we're always encouraged and happy to see that you all show up and participate and you're eager to learn and engage with all of us. Today we've got 3 presentations given by 5 students here, 2 from California State University, Los Angeles, and 1 from San Jose State University. If most of you have the application, the app that's on from AAAE and SWAHI's link to it, you'll be able to read their bios. So we'll forego the bios and just read them off by name and the order of which they will be presenting. At the end of the session, we'll allow for question and answers. And then as we adjourn after Andy concludes the conference, we'd like to invite our SWAHI board members and any other airport and industry leaders to join us up here on the podium for the annual class photo with the students. This is the 4th year running, so we do like to now keep a collection of the continued involvement with our academic members and SWAHI. So going up first will be Pearl Sun and Alejandra Avalos from California State University, Los Angeles, followed with Michelle Tripp and Richard Brandy from San Jose State University. And then last but certainly not least will be Mr. Cooper Lushbaugh from California State University, Los Angeles. So once again, let's give them a round of applause, and we'll welcome Pearl and Alejandra to start.
Sorry about that, and we are ready to get started. So, hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pearl.
I'm Alejandra.
And we are students from California State University of Los Angeles, majoring in aviation administration, with our major, or with our topic here called Women in Aviation. Before I would like to get started, I wanted to thank Sean for moderating and facilitating this student presentation session, which gives us students the opportunity to present in front of you audience, which are aviation industry professionals. And without further ado, let's get started.
So, as you can see, our topic is women in aviation, and no, women is not misspelled. It is purposely with a Y. The reason for this is because it's a non-standard spelling of women adopted by feminists in order to remove the word men inside woman. Okay. So, as a feminist, you don't want to be correlated with men. Okay, so the reason why we chose this topic is because we're two females pursuing jobs in aviation field. So we're going to do a brief little history about women in aviation. It's the timeline and highlights of some of the most popular events of women in the aviation. So Harriet Quimby, in 1911, she becomes the first woman to get her pilot's license at the age of 37. In 1921, we have Bessie Coleman, and she becomes the first African American to earn her pilot's license. The 99s, started in 1929, is exclusively for women. No men can join. And you have to be a pilot or a student pilot as well. In 1937, Amelia Earhart was one of the most famous pilots, and she was the first one to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, as well as she disappeared while doing that, sadly. In 1940, we had World War II, where all the men went to war, and the women took up their jobs. In 1942, we have Mary Chance the first female civilian air traffic controller, and she worked at Denver Airway. We also have Airport Minority Advisory Council, which is AMAC, and their mission statement is to promote inclusion of minorities of women, employment and contracting and opportunities throughout aviation industry. In 1990, we have Women in Aviation, WAI. Although Women in Aviation is Women in Aviation, it is not exclusive towards women, so men can also join this. In 2009, we had the most recent, President Obama signed the Congressional Gold Medal for the women in the Air Force, or the WASP.
So here is a quick database and a quick feedback, or based on data that we received from the Women in Aviation resource website. And we focusedly emphasize on 5 categories of women pilots, or in this case, it's both topics of both female and men versus females only. So over here we have a 2015 database on primarily focused on 5 categories: the student pilot, the private pilot, the commercial pilot license, airline transport, and flight instructors. And as we can see, in the total of the both all, which compose of men and female, of up to 651,000, women only represent about 56,000, which only represents about 7% of the entire population for the pilot industry. And if you can see, this is only exclusively focused in 2015. So this graph greatly exemplifies or visualizes on what's the difference between the main majority of the numbers for both men and female. So in this case, for the one in blue, it's composed of both men and female, and the one in red, it's composed primarily on female. So you can tell that there is a there is a high difference in both of them. Next, we have the next database on 2010 to 2015 on pilots, also focusedly on women pilots. So in this case, we can see that there has been a huge decline from 2010 to 2015. In the color on the left bottom graph, it shows that the years are color-coded, and it shows that there is a decline for each of these 5 categories. And we can see that on the right bottom corner graph. So you can see it went from 48,000 all the way down to 45,000. And we could say that the factors that may contribute to this is because of the payment or the flight fees, or maybe the time scheduling, and perhaps around the industry in terms of information. And finally, we have next 2 slides which focuses on non-pilots. So this is also similar to the other 2 slides, except this one's primarily focused on non-pilots. So in this case, in 2015, we can see that we have only focused on 7 categories: the mechanic, repairman, parachute rigger, ground instructor, dispatcher, flight attendant, and flight engineer. And in this entire category, both men and female represent only about 738,000, and in that number, women only represent 183,000, which calculates up to 24%. Now, if you can see the both left and right bottom side of the graphs, you can see that there has been about a slight increase in both of these. So even though it shows that that men are still the male-dominated in this field, women are slowly increasing up into this aviation, and you can see that in the graph. So here we have 2010 to 2015 of the non-pilots of just exclusively women from 2010 to 2015 in the same 7 categories. And we can see that there has been a huge increase in non-pilots rather than the other one. So for pilots, as we can see on the other 2 slides, there has been a decrease, while for non-pilots, it has been an increase from 150,000 up to 183,000. And we can see that flight attendants are the main or the higher percentage rate of increasing for non-pilots. And here we go.
So attributes that women bring to the table, essentially what I'm trying to push is to hire women. And women are very good at multitasking. We're natural multitaskers. We can do many things all at once. We're always positive. For the majority of us, we're very peppy and perky. Among others, we always stay positive. And then these are just some of the types of jobs that women work in. So airport, federal, aviation, FAA, aerospace, just among some of the many jobs that are out there.
And finally, in conclusion, even though we have demonstrated the data and the statistics of demonstrating the difference of the majority for both men and female, we can say that even though we have these differences, it does not mean that we need more people. The other way. We actually need more people into the aviation, and we focus primarily on 2 different areas, in this case from elementary to high school and finally in college students. So for elementary to high school, we say that the teachers or the school should propose to have their kids or the children or the students to go to air shows to have fun or to volunteer at these events, which can be very interactive to give them a hands-on training and to see what it's like to work in the aviation field. We also propose to have them go on multiple field trips, not specifically at airports, but also airlines as well. And this includes perhaps at towers or even plane rides as well. We do propose to have many people to come to the classroom settings to give a show and tell in terms of their career or their history. We say that media is also a very important aspect in better representing aviation to the audience. And for kids that are interested to become pilots, we highly suggest them to go with flight schools around their local areas. And for college students, I believe that this is a great opportunity for people, or for students specifically, to look into these conferences and these conventions such as the SWAHI, the AAAE, the Women in Aviation, as well as the AMAC. And we believe that this is a great essential benefit for the students in order to gain a stepping stone into the aviation industry. And we also propose that companies should have partnership with these schools so that it can help students get a better stepping stone when applying for internships or for jobs. And last but not least, even though many people do not recognize aviation as a career, we believe that it greatly exemplifies that aviation is a very unique and a very different field, and it's very fun and very interactive. So Alejandra, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, to go in with that, I believe airport executives and airports should stay highly connected with their community. Always try to promote your airport, promote the jobs, because they're not well known. There's programs in the LA area that are connected with high schools, and they promote more engineering, but there's not any partnerships with aviation. So those are things that we should go more in depth. And I mean, we're talking about that there's not going to be any more pilots, but what are we doing to promote getting more pilots? I feel like we should be advocating more to the high school, because they're the future. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Just want to make sure. Yes, okay, good. Okay, so my name is Michelle. I go to school at San Jose State University. I am a senior, and I'm majoring to be an aviation operator.
So I'm Richard Brandy, just recent grad at San Jose State as well. And today we're going to be talking about improving airport safety using UAS and for runway inspections. So what we did for our senior project at San Jose State was worked on the Airport Cooperative Research Program. If you're not aware what the Airport Cooperative Research Program is, it's a program that is sponsored by the FAA and managed by the Transportation Research Board. And it helps develop research in fields that aren't always funded and don't normally get addressed as far as airport safety is concerned. And so our instructor couldn't stress enough that he wanted to see new ideas when we were starting this project. So our group decided to come up with new ideas or a technique to make runway inspections more efficient and to help improve upon safety for runway inspections. So, as most airport operators know, FOD can be extremely hazardous to airport operations. The picture on the left here shows the Air France crash in July 25th, 2000, when the Concorde sucked in a piece of titanium debris into its engines. It caused 100 people on board to die, 9 crew members and 4 persons on the ground. And it is one of the worst FOD-related crashes to date. And while this crash couldn't have been prevented by FOD inspection, unless FOD inspections were taking place after every takeoff and departure, because the FOD which caused this accident fell off the previous departing aircraft 3 minutes prior, it shows the devastation that FOD can cause. Now, the picture on the right there shows what subsurface inspections could prevent And if a subsurface inspection was conducted in Greenville, Mississippi at Mid-Delta Regional, it could have saved Continental Airlines $1.5 million when their 737 punctured through the runway due to the runway surface integrity being degraded because a leaky pipe underneath the runway caused the surface to be eroded, so the aircraft fell through.
So our project proposal was to implement the use of a small unmanned system to complete surface and subsurface inspections. Now, the goal of this, or the goal of our project, was just to be able to implement a UAS into the airport environment, but we wanted to make sure that it could improve safety. We're not saying that we want to replace someone's job or say, no, we want this thing to only do runway inspections or subsurface inspections. We want it to be a way to enhance the way that you're able to do your inspections. So won't replace any jobs. Just saying.
So this is the UAV that we use to conduct the inspections, and the table on the right highlights some of the specifications of the UAV. What's important to note here is we used a fixed wing UAV. When most people think drone or UAV, they think of someone flying their DJI Phantom out there with a GoPro. But to highlight how more efficient the X8 Skywalker is, if we were to program a circuit to fly around Reed Hillview, as the airport we did, it would take approximately 3 minutes to launch, from launch to land. And so the X8 was outfitted with actually a standard GoPro 4 Silver Edition camera, and we used a special lens or a modified lens on the X8 to simulate a ground penetrating radar mounted upon a UAV. So the X8 flies approximately 3 times faster than the standard quadcopter or rotor. So, and it's fully autonomous. There was a safety pilot that was used, but this is the software that was used to program the mission to fly the runway. And so all the green dots on there are pre-programmed GPS coordinates. So once the UAV is out and ready to fly, the code is written to the UAV, and then it's read back to the computer to make sure there's no errors in there. And there is a safety pilot observing that can take over at any time, but this is a fully autonomous operation. And as soon as the UAV is launched, it can either be hand-launched or used in the bungee system you see there underneath the top photo to launch it. As soon as it's launched, it's fully autonomous, including its landing.
So naturally, in any environment, there are safety hazards and there are risks, but when in doubt, keep calm, carry out a risk assessment. So one great thing about risk assessments is that they're a really important part of any good safety management plan. And risk assessments are also great because they create the awareness that you do have all these risks in the first place, but they also can tell you who is at risk and where these risks are more likely to occur. So safety or risk assessment plans are great. While using a UAV in an airport environment, yes, there are risks. So these are only some, definitely not all, but your UAV could experience a partial failure or loss of your navigational systems. It could lose altitude. It could have a collision with a manned or an unmanned vehicle or with buildings or power lines. And it can also be affected by severe weather or climatic events. The contractor, we didn't fly it, although it really would have been cool, but I don't think Mr. Peterson would have trusted just college students flying a UAV at his airport. But so we had a contractor come out and fly it, or fly the fixed wing, and they conducted multiple safety checks before, during, and after the operation. So they did all that they could to mitigate most of these risks. So this is a runway at Reed Hillview Airport. So what we did when we got out there is although it did fly, or the UAV did fly around for about 11 minutes, it did take some time to set up. So with the setup time and the flying and the taking pictures, it took about almost 60 minutes or a little under 60 minutes. The camera we attached we had a GoPro, and then we used another camera with a normalized difference vegetation index. So the picture on the right, picture on the left is the camera, and then on the right is the normalized difference vegetation index. So let me explain the reason why we use that to simulate ground penetrating radar. Ground penetrating radar is expensive. We don't have $30,000 to just buy a ground penetrating radar system. So we figured this would be a really good way to simulate what's going on beneath the runway. So you have these 4 colors here. You have red and orange, which means that there is no life or no greenery. And then you have, of course, green and yellow, which means that there is life. So this is a good picture, because unless your runway is a beautiful grassy field, you want it to look red and orange. You want there to be no life growing or no weeds growing through the cracks of your runway. If there were larger sections of green or yellow, then of course that means there is life, or there are probably weeds. Weeds need moisture to grow. That means moisture is beneath your runway, so that could lead to a very sticky situation in the future. So this was, again, the way that we were able to simulate ground penetrating radar. To get these 2 pictures that we have here, the camera, or the UAV was flying with the camera. The camera took pictures every 2 seconds. Once the pictures were collected and uploaded, they were stitched together, and then you have this image we have before you.
So now for the cost. As Michelle said, we used a private contractor who graciously donated their time and equipment to conduct this study for us. But if we were to pay out of pocket for this study, it would have cost us $255, and that's for one runway inspection with 2 inspections with the 2 different images you've seen. The company we use charges based on acreage surveyed, $3 per acre for the standard medium resolution, $5 per acre using the NDVI. And if a airport were to invest in the equipment to do it themselves, that's what the figures on the right showed. The acquisition cost of the X8, which we used, and all the equipment as far as the computers to run it, programming, autopilot, launch system would cost approximately $3,000. And then the optional equipment, which we did a little bit of research on, we would recommend that if this was being conducted at an airport, that it would have an ADS-B transmitter on it. And so an ADS-B transmitter, they're making them as small as the size of a quarter now, and that's about the cost of the ADS-B micro. Ground penetrating radar, as Michelle said, it's very expensive. And the ground station, that's the trailer, the company we contracted to use fly the mission has a trailer with a couple UAVs, computers, and they just tow it behind a truck. And then they also offer a weekend training course. That's actually become more popular for their business rather than going out and surveying land. They have a $5,000 weekend training course, and actually 6 of us students were lucky enough to get he compressed the course into a couple 3-hour studies for us at school after we had another class, and we got to learn everything from the batteries to how to fly the drone, which we were very fortunate. So the big question, is this a viable option for you and your airport? So to answer this question, you may want to ask yourself these questions. How many inspections do you perform per day at your airport? Of course, how large is your airport? And like I said, we use the fixed wing because it flies much faster and to simulate surveying a larger airport. That was the main reason why we use the fixed wing. Does your airport have any type of underground irrigation? If it does, it would be imperative that ground penetrating radar is used every so often to survey the integrity underneath the runway. Do you have any commercial operations at your airport? And these are just some of the questions you may want to ask.
All right, so before we get any further, this system is not for everyone. If you don't think that you need this, Richard and I don't know the needs of you or your airport's environment. If you do decide to look into this, hopefully you will use this for not just surface and subsurface inspections. Hopefully you can use it for being able to catalog the FOD that you find or any other relevant airport data. We hope you'll take stunning pictures of your airports because we all know how beautiful airports are. And then we also hope that with this, you might be able to start recognizing trends in your own airport environment. Cool. So just a special thanks to all these people right now. Eric Peterson's in the back. Hi, Eric. And then Sean Brennan's also there. Hi, Sean. We also want to thank all these people. They were very important. Without the permission of course, the airport director and the tower manager at Reed Hillview Airport, we would not have been allowed to fly a UAV on the airport grounds. So I want to thank them all very much. And then also to the other people, we were not the only ones. We were a group of 6, but unfortunately, we were the only 2 people that were able to be here to present this project to you. And when it's all said and done, at least we had fun. So it was a great picture. So I want to thank you all so much for listening to our presentation, and we hope you learned a little bit of how you can maybe use a UAS to improve safety operations at your airport. Thank you.
So, hi, my name's Cooper. I guess, hi, Cooper. Yeah. And I'm a student at Cal State LA. Some of you might already know me. If you don't, hi. But I'm not really here to talk to you quite as a student from Cal State LA. I want to talk to you as a former entry-level employee at an FBO. So basically, you know, bottom of the barrel, making barely above minimum wage, towing around aircraft, and doing that sort of thing. So, first I want to ask you all a question. Is this a smart place to be? The answer is no. And I can tell you this from personal experience. So, this is a nice new, well actually older than me, 767. And about a year and a half ago, I decided to stand behind it. Why? Is it because I have a death wish? No. It's because I actually did not know how close you can be to a 767 when the engines are throttled up. Apparently 80 feet is too close. So I spent that night in the hospital, nearly died. And that was a horrible thing. So as I sat there in my hospital bed, I asked myself the question everybody's going to ask themselves. Why? Why did this happen to me? And, you know, there's a lot of questions, you know. I'm sure my manager thought all of these questions just as well. So the first thought, I'm sure what everyone's going to think is training. Was I properly trained? Well, I don't want to say which company I worked at because I don't wish to associate them with this sort of bad thing because it really wasn't their fault. But all I'll have to say is that they do have a world-class training program, and I received the best. But the problem was this. I love this graph. This is an awesome graph, and this graph shows you exactly what training does. Now, you can see this inverted U relationship. That represents the amount of accidents that you are going to see. Now, as you watch the first 3 months, that's your standard training period. You're watching them like hawks, every new employee. And as they sit there, they can't get themselves hurt. And then after that 3 months, you let them loose. And the thing is, if you'll recall that nice presentation we got from that gentleman from Horizon, you only learn about 10% of everything you know from classroom exercises, things of that nature. The only thing that can really keep you safe is real-world experience. And so as you go and curve upwards, as they get more and more confident, but still don't really know much. You eventually hit that peak, which actually happens at about 9 months. Coincidentally, I happen to have 9 months of experience the night of my accident. So, we can all tell right now that experience is one of the most important things for a base level employee. But there is a problem, is that the average line tech, at least at my company and every other FBO I've ever seen, lasts about 2 to 3 years. Now, just on a simple scatter plot, you could say that in a 3-year relationship, if you're hiring an employee at the same amount of average time, about a third of them will have less than a year's experience. And they are going to be at the worst end of that curve. At my night, I had 9 months of experience, and I was the most senior person working on that operation. This is at the third largest FBO in the world, or sorry, the third largest general aviation airport in the United States. So I can guarantee you it's probably not going to be much better anywhere else. So, the second thing, which some people have told me, is that, well, this is a failure of management. Well, I don't want to rag upon my boss. He didn't mean for that to happen. In fact, I actually like the guy. But there is a certain reality, you know. It comes down to, you know, it's not going to be me. It's not going to be me. I will prevent it. And if you will tell me that, the question I will ask you is, do you like to sleep in a bed at home? Do you spend every waking second on that airfield? Of course you don't. I got hurt at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. My boss went home at 5. You would have gone home at 5. You've got better things to do on a Saturday night. And so you are only as strong as your weakest employee. And this is vital. This is so vital. Now, so the most important thing now is to keep on your employees to make sure that they're strong and experienced and leave them going. And, you know, I could probably give you a nice long trip of management strategies and how to do that, but quite frankly, I'm pretty sure everybody here already knows that, so let's cut to the chase. This is how you do it. And of course, what you're going to do is you're going to go down to your accounting manager or someone else, and you're going to say, hey, I want to pay every single employee I have $15 an hour. And they're going to give you expressions something like this. So this is the tricky part. This is the hard part, is that our profit margins are razor thin, at least in the FBO business. Airport management, you can get a little bit by because you're government nonprofit. But I just want to emphasize that this doesn't necessarily make you safer. You are still beholden to the same rules. It's just that you pay your employees more and they stick around longer. So, let's see the first cheapo way of getting this done. So, you can go to your HR department right here, right now, and you can get a list of your employee start dates. Now, an employee with less than a year's worth of experience is 3 times more likely to be injured on the job than one who has more than a year's experience. It's a pretty good start date. Just go, take everybody who has more than a year. They're now dangers. And it's your job to make sure that you don't schedule them all on the same shift, like we did. Because quite frankly, we asked ourselves how much year experience you did. You know how long it took us to find out? 15 minutes. One phone call, trip to the HR department. So it's so simple. But of course, then you might get yourself into a little bit of a problem, is that over time, you've been losing employees, and now all of them have less than a year, and you have to start staffing them, sending them out alone, or sending them out in groups. and relying on themselves to figure out what's going on. And so you have to reduce that turnover. And again, you're going to come back to this. And, you know, that's a tough argument to make. I made it. You can guess exactly how well that went, you know. Low-level employees saying that. But you have to make the argument. And if you want to tell these wonderful people in accounting who have to do this, who have to crunch the numbers and have to make this budget balance, you can start by teaching them some math. The average accident or injury from a worker costs $38,000. Mine cost a lot more, over $100,000 in direct costs. But you're going to be losing even more than that. You're losing about $4 for every one. As you can see, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So each accident that you have is $152,000. Now, how much is that worth to prevent? Is it worth, say, paying your employees a little bit more to make sure your turnover is low? Well, I don't know. I'm just the bottom guy. But there are costs. There are costs to be paid. I watched my manager, a man I respect more than anything, a man who taught me so much, sit there in that hospital room and try to explain to my family why their son is in a bed next to a gunshot victim. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So this is the real deal. But if you can do this, I'll thank you. Your employees will thank you. And in the end, I think you'll thank yourself. So, well, thank you for listening.
Once again, let's give a round of applause to all of our students here for giving some great presentations. I'd like to once again thank our sponsor for this session, Delta Airport Consultants, so we can have a round of applause for them. And if I can, real quick, we'll have two plaques here for our student presentations representing both schools that have participated. One for California State University, Los Angeles, and one for San Jose State. So to Pearl, Alejandra, and Cooper. It's an additional plaque for you guys to put onto the wall next to Dr. Mew's office. I can happily say as a Cal State LA grad, I think a lot of alumni now have to use both hands to count the number of plaques that we have on the wall. And for San Jose State University, we have a plaque for you as well. And I'd like to personally say for San Jose State, as we do have a large group of students, kind of as a welcome back to have you guys return for SWAHI. When I started back in 2011, 2012, there were a couple students from San Jose State, and the participation rate from you guys' school had kind of dropped down to the ones and twos of students. So it's very encouraging to see you guys this year come with such a strong presence of your members. And also like to share that you guys are working very diligently and very close to having your student chapter reinstated with AAAE. It sounds like all you have to do is complete the annual report to National, and we'll have you back into the realms of AAAE. So congratulations, and thank you again for attending. At this point, we'll turn it over to Andy Swanson to wrap up the conference with a couple of housekeeping items. And for those teams that still have some scorecards and report cards out there, you can turn them back to me on the front table here, and we'll tally them up, and we'll announce the winner during the banquet. Thank you. We will open it up for some questions, and I'd like to start with the first one for Michelle and Richard. With your UAS operations, can the inspections be conducted at night for some of the airports that will have a drop in traffic to hopefully manage with safety.
Test, test. Okay. With the NDVI camera that we use to simulate the ground penetrating radar, that one would not work at night because it works on photosynthesis based on the plants. That's why the plants and the runway have a different color. Now with the standard GoPro, I'm not aware of if there's a night vision lens filter or something that you could mount on it, so I would say no. But I would have to do more research on that to give you a definite answer.
So did you run any tests to see what kind of pod it could detect? Did you see how small an object it could be, you know, metal, plastic, screwdrivers, whatever?
Great question. So when we originally took all of the images and we had them all stitched together, when you get the images separately, you can zoom in and see really quick. I think the only thing I saw when I was with Charlie was like a screw, but I think by then Sean would have probably found it already because that guy's pretty good at his job. So, but yeah, but you can, it might take a little longer, which is why we wouldn't, I mean, you would have to have a person like Sean who does airport operations and they would have to go through to see if it was there. But yeah, the most I saw was a screw. I wasn't able to see anything else to my knowledge, but yeah, good question.
Minimum safe distance is 200 feet. Got that one? Yeah. We found that one out really quick. So if you want to know, I mean, in a direct sense, we changed that procedure. Well, there were a lot of mistakes made that night. Nah, some of them mine. It's like that with every accident. So we did an unsafe procedure that we should not have done and which broke our own company's regulations, although we didn't understand that at the time. Just because we didn't know what we were doing. Like I said, 9 months of experience, and I was the most senior person there. But yeah, so we changed that procedure, and but it's very easy to just change a procedure. Anybody can change a procedure. It takes a lot more to change a culture. And personally, I believe that's what needs to happen.
Any more questions? No? Okay, Sean.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. And we'll have the corporate meeting in here right after this. And tonight on the plaza at 6 o'clock, we'll start the reception. So thank you, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the conference.